Establishing the order of the kingdom of God in a chaotic world, here's Pastor Reid with Kingdom
Be Full. This is my commandment, that ye love one another as I have loved you. Greater love, here we go now, greater love have no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friend. Yea, now look what he says. Ye are my friends if ye do whatsoever I command you. Henceforth I call you not servants, for the servant knoweth not what his Lord doeth. But I have called you friends, for all things that I have heard of my Father I have made known unto you. Ye have not chosen me, but I have chosen you, and ordained you that you should go and bring forth fruit, and that your fruit should remain, that whatsoever ye shall ask in my Father's name, he may give it to you. Now, we just finished reading from John chapter 15, from verse 9 around to verse 16. But look what he says here in verse 15. Verse 14. Ye are my friends if ye do whatsoever I command you. Someone may say, well, what has God commanded me? And I know we may go back and look at the 10 commandments and say, is that what God has commanded me? Because one thing we must understand, as the book of Hebrews chapter 5 says, that in the last days I'm going to place my covenant on the hearts of men. You won't have to go to your neighbor and say, neighbor, know the Lord. I have already placed the commands. I've placed my ordinances upon their heart. So from that point, we must understand that as we come forth in what God has called us to do, we are like Mary and Elizabeth. When we speak about what God has spoke to us, guess what? It ignites something in their hearts that God has already placed there. But look what he says right here. Ye are my friends. Henceforth, I call you not servants, for the servant knoweth not what his Lord doeth. I hear a lot of people say, well, I'm just serving the Lord. I'm just a servant of the Lord. But according to Galatians chapter 4, in verse 1, it says, though you be Lord of all, but guess what? A servant differ nothing from a child. So when we say that we are just servants of the Lord, guess what? We're still at an elementary state. And we must understand that God is raising us up now to be sons, to be full, mature sons. So in order to be a son, then guess what? You must flow out of what God has given unto you. And verse 16, you have not guess what? You have not chose God, he chose you. He ordained it in you. According to the book of Ephesians, he has predestinated us before the foundation of the earth, what we shall do and what he has called us to do. So in order to receive the joy or to receive the blessing or what you desire from out of life, you must flow out of what God has called you. So I'm going to go to an example here, 2 Corinthians chapter 8. Let's look at 2 Corinthians chapter 8. We know the number 8 is for new beginnings. And this is something really new to Paul. And as I read through this, I'm just going to explain what was so awesome to him, or what he thought was so exciting. Here, 2 Corinthians chapter 8. Moreover, brethren, we do you to wit of the grace of God bestowed on the churches at Macedonia. I'm going to stop here at this word wit. This word wit means to make known or to bring clarity. And this is what he's saying right here to the Corinthians. Because one thing we must understand about the Corinthians, they were a very prosperous people. There was a port city where a lot of goods came in. There was a lot of jobs. The people were very prosperous. They wasn't like a lot of the other churches. So the churches at Corinth were very prosperous. But Paul is saying here, look, I saw something great. I saw something that I've never seen before, and what I'm about to do here, I'm going to explain it to you, and I'm going to bring clarity unto you, because that's what the word wit means. It means that I'm going to bring clarity, or I'm going to make known to you of this grace of God. Now look at verse 2. He says, how that in a great trial of affliction, now look what he says now, how that in a great trial of affliction, the abundance of their joy and their deep poverty abounded unto the riches of their liberty. Look what he's saying right here. Now, these people were worse off than their brethren. And he said here, the church of Macedonia, out of what? How that in a great trial of affliction, the abundance of their joy. Even though they were under great trial and under great affliction, but look what they said. Look what he says here. They gave out of their joy, and their deep poverty abounded unto the riches of their freedom. Let me tell you something. Things may not be going quite right in your life, but guess what? There's still a freedom. There's some sense of freedom that God has given you. God has delivered you from something up until this point. So what God is saying is you must walk out of that freedom. What has God delivered you from? What has God brought you from this place up until this point? Guess what? You are free from that thing that he's delivered you out of. So guess what he's saying here? Now there may be other issues in your life. There may be other things in your life that you're trying to overcome. But guess what you've got to do? You've got to do like this church at Macedonia, and you've got to look to your brother. And you've got to say, okay, what is it? What has God delivered me? I'm free in that area of my life. So guess what? Flow out of that. I say to people all the time, if you grew up and you seem as though, hey, mom didn't love me the way that I thought, dad didn't give me what I thought he should have given me, then guess what? Hey, that might be true, but ultimately, if you did not get what you thought you should have got as a child, then evidently you recognize what you wouldn't get. So guess what you need to do? You need to go and find people that didn't receive what you thought you didn't receive. Now you need to give them that. Because guess what? You know what it's like not to have received love. You know what it's like not to have received the security or whatever you didn't get as a child. You know what it is. You can identify with it. You are able to look at other people and say, you know what? They need some love. So you know what? Instead of me pouting and looking for someone to always come and give to me, guess what you should do? Flow out of that freedom. Go and show them some love. I tell people all the time here at Good News, when you're feeling down, get on the phone and call somebody. Take $10, $15 or take them out to lunch somewhere. Go and give to somebody else. And I guarantee you, there will be a joy, there will be a grace, there will be something that will rise up in your spirit that will make you even forget about your situation because now you're helping someone else.
You have been viewing the Kingdom Reality Broadcast, a media experience produced by Good News Outreach Ministries, pastored by Ricky and Natalie Reid. You can contact them at 2130 Dexter Street, Wilmington, North Carolina, 28403. You can call them at 200-4863, or you may email them at kingdomreality12@yahoo.com.